Nicole Kidman has made her first public appearance since her split from Keith Urban.
We've been through a lot together.
We've got a timeline for it now, and the time is it's now.
For nearly 20 years, Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban stood as one of Hollywood and Nashville's most closely watched marriages, an Oscar-winning actress and a chart-topping country star who seemed to have built something lasting out of two very different worlds. Then, in the fall of 2025, that story quietly ended. There was no scandal caught on camera, no explosive confrontation splashed across headlines. Instead, court paperwork, a missing wedding ring, and a handful of careful public statements told the real story of how a 19-year marriage came apart. This is the true, documented account of what happened and what has come out since. Nicole Mary Kidman was born in Honolulu in 1967, while her Australian parents were temporarily living abroad. Her father was a biochemist and clinical psychologist, and her mother worked as a nurse and academic. The family returned to Sydney while Nicole was still a child, and she grew up in a household that valued discipline and achievement. By her own account in past interviews, she was an unusually shy child, someone who preferred ballet and drama classes to speaking up in a classroom. That early retreat into performance turned out to be the beginning of a career. Australia's film industry was expanding through the early 1980s, and Kidman found steady work in television movies before landing a breakout role in the 1983 film BMX Bandits. Her height and striking features made her stand out, but directors kept casting her because of her range. By the end of the decade, Hollywood had taken notice, and so had Tom Cruise, who became her co-star and, in 1990, her husband. The marriage to Cruise made Kidman one of the most photographed women in the world, but it also introduced her to a level of scrutiny and control that she has said, in general terms over the years, she found difficult. When the marriage ended in 2001, Kidman lost primary custody of their two adopted children, Isabella and Connor. That loss has been widely reported as one of the most painful chapters of her life, and it is frequently cited by entertainment journalists as a key reason she has since been fiercely protective of her privacy and her role as a mother. Keith Urban was born in Whangarei, New Zealand, in 1967, the same year as Kidman, before his family relocated to Queensland, Australia. His father ran a convenience store but loved country music, an unusual passion in suburban Australia at the time, and he pushed young Keith toward the guitar. By 6 years old, Urban was already performing. He built his career the hard way, working talent shows and small venues in Australia before moving to Nashville in the early 1990s to chase a bigger stage. His self-titled American debut album in 1999 finally broke him into the mainstream, and he became known for his guitar work, his stage presence, and a voice built for heartbreak songs. But Urban has spoken publicly, many times, about his long struggle with substance abuse, including stints in rehab both before and after he became famous. By the time he and Kidman crossed paths in 2005, sobriety was already a defining and difficult thread running through his life. The two Australians met at the Day USA Gala in Los Angeles in January 2005, an event built around celebrating Australian talent in Hollywood. Kidman was newly divorced from Cruise, but riding high professionally, having won the Academy Award for The Hours in 2003. Urban, for his part, was reserved when they were introduced, and by Kidman's own later account, he did not call her for months afterward. When their relationship did take off, it moved quickly. They were photographed together by the spring, and Kidman later described him publicly as someone who changed her life. They married in June 2006 at a chapel in Sydney, in a ceremony filled with both Hollywood names and country music royalty. It was framed, at the time, as a fairy tale ending for two people who had each been through very public struggles of their own. Just months after the wedding, Urban checked into rehab for alcohol abuse. It was a jarring start to a marriage that had been sold to the public as a healing story, and tabloids at the time speculated openly about whether the relationship would survive. Kidman, by all public accounts, stood by him. In later interviews, Urban has credited her support during that period as central to his recovery, and he has maintained long-term sobriety since. The years that followed were, on the surface, remarkably stable for two people with such demanding careers. Kidman kept working steadily, balancing major studio projects with smaller, critically respected films. Urban toured constantly and picked up multiple Grammy Awards along the way. They welcomed two daughters, Sunday Rose in 2008 and Faith Margaret in 2010. And by most external measures, they built exactly the kind of family life that had eluded both of them in their previous relationships. Behind that stability, however, the demands of two touring, globally recognized careers created real strain. Entertainment reporters covering the couple over the years frequently noted the logistical challenge of keeping a marriage together across his tour schedule and her film shoots, which often kept them on different continents for weeks at a time. Through the middle of the 2010s, occasional rumors of tension surfaced in entertainment coverage, disagreements over scheduling, speculation about the pressures of Urban's touring lifestyle, and the general strain of maintaining a marriage under constant public observation. The couple consistently presented a united front in interviews during this period, and there is no reliable public reporting confirming a break at that time. What is documented is that the marriage continued for years afterward, through the release of more music, more films, and the girls growing into their teenage years. By the early 2020s, according to multiple entertainment outlets that later covered the divorce, people close to the couple had come to see a split as something that felt, in hindsight, like it had been building for some time. That kind of retrospective narrative is common after any long relationship ends, and it should be read with some caution. It reflects how sources characterized the relationship after the fact, not necessarily how things looked from the inside while the marriage was intact. According to reporting from People, News, and other outlets that covered the story closely, Kidman and Urban privately separated and began living apart at the beginning of summer 2025. News reported that despite the separation already being underway, the couple was still seen together publicly over the summer, including an appearance at the FIFA Club World Cup in Nashville, where they were seen laughing together. In June, marking 19 years of marriage, Kidman posted an anniversary photo of the two of them with a warm caption. Urban acknowledged it with an emoji, but did not post anything of his own. Urban spent much of that summer on the road with his High and Alive world tour, moving through the United States, Canada, and Australia. Kidman, meanwhile, was working on international film and television projects, including the Prime Video series Scarpetta. On September 30th, 2025, Kidman filed for divorce in a Nashville court, listing the date of separation as the date of filing and citing irreconcilable differences. According to People and other outlets, a marital dissolution agreement and a parenting plan were filed the same day, meaning the two sides had already worked out the terms privately before the filing became public. TMZ was among the first outlets to report that the two had been living apart since early summer, and Fox News reported that a source close to Kidman had described the split as something people around Urban did not find surprising. The court documents themselves were notably restrained. Both parties waived spousal support and child support, a detail multiple outlets pointed to as evidence that their finances had likely been kept largely separate throughout the marriage. The parenting plan, signed the previous month in August 2025, established joint decision-making authority over their daughters' lives, while granting Kidman primary residential custody. Urban received parenting time every other weekend. In the days immediately following the filing, speculation intensified. Fox News reported that sources had described hearing whispers of another woman connected to Urban, and TMZ reported similar claims from a source close to Kidman, who suggested Kidman herself was aware of and startled by the rumors. It is important to be precise here. These reports were sourced to anonymous individuals speaking to tabloid outlets, and neither Kidman nor Urban has ever publicly confirmed a third party played any role in the split. Reputable outlets covering the story, including Taste of Country, explicitly noted that no official confirmation of an affair existed, describing much of the another woman narrative as unverified rumors circulating alongside the facts of the filing. What is separately documented is that Urban had been touring with a band that included guitarist Maggie Baugh, and that clips of the two performing together circulated online in the weeks after the split became public, fueling further speculation. Again, no outlet has produced confirmation of anything beyond a professional touring relationship, and neither party has commented on it directly. Urban's tour continued through the fall, and his first show, following the divorce announcement drew significant attention from fans and entertainment press, who noted that he took the stage without his wedding ring. Coverage of his subsequent performances described an emotionally charged atmosphere, with fans and reporters reading meaning into his stage presence and setlist choices in the weeks that followed. Because these are subjective interpretations of a live performance rather than documented statements from Urban himself about his intentions, they are best understood as fan and media speculation rather than confirmed fact. The two sides moved through the legal process unusually quickly by Hollywood standards. According to People, In Style, and Forbes coverage of the settlement, the divorce was finalized on January 6, 2026, just over 3 months after the initial filing. Legal commentators who reviewed the settlement, including attorney Marilyn Chinitz, writing for Forbes, pointed to the joint decision-making structure and the quick resolution as evidence that the couple had prioritized cooperation over conflict, which is relatively uncommon in high-profile celebrity divorces. The final custody arrangement mirrored the original parenting plan. Sunday Rose, then 17, and Faith Margaret, then 15, would primarily reside with their mother in Nashville, while spending alternating weekends with their father. The agreement included language committing both parents to avoid speaking negatively about each other in front of their daughters and to actively encourage the girls' relationships with both parents. A standard but notable clause in high-conflict adjacent celebrity custody arrangements. Kidman largely stepped back from public commentary in the months immediately following the filing. She was photographed spending the holidays in Australia with her daughters, and a source told People that she had wanted a quiet Christmas at home after what had been, in her own later words, a difficult year. She rang in 2026 with an Instagram post of herself and her daughters, captioned simply that she was looking forward to the year ahead. Urban, for his part, continued his touring schedule through the fall and winter, throwing himself into a demanding string of dates that took him across multiple countries. It was not until March 2026 that Kidman addressed the divorce directly in an interview with Variety. While promoting Scarpetta, she described the previous year as a period in which she had gone quiet and retreated into herself, saying she had other things going on. Asked whether she was doing all right since the separation, she said she was, because she was always moving toward what felt good in her life. She added that she was grateful for her family and focused on keeping her daughters' lives stable, and said she preferred not to discuss the details further out of respect for the family they remained. Board Panda's coverage of the interview also noted commentary from fans praising the restraint and dignity with which she has handled both of her divorces. Strip away the speculation, and the documented facts tell a fairly clear story. Two people with enormously demanding, globally visible careers, who built a family together over nearly 2 decades, quietly grew apart over the course of a difficult year, separated privately in the summer of 2025, and worked out the legal and financial terms of their split, support waivers, custody, decision-making, before the divorce filing ever became public. That is a very different picture from the version of events built entirely on anonymous tabloid sourcing and interpretations of concert setlists. What the record does not support is a confirmed affair, a single dramatic breaking point, or detailed insight into private conversations between the two of them. Multiple entertainment outlets that covered the story responsibly were careful to draw that same line, reporting the confirmed legal facts distinctly from the unconfirmed rumors that inevitably surround any high-profile split. As of Kidman's March 2026 comments, both she and Urban appear focused on their daughters and their respective careers. Kidman continues acting, including her role in Scarpetta, and has spoken about wanting to return to stage work. Urban remains on the road with his touring schedule. Their daughters divide time between 2 homes under a custody arrangement both parents agreed to before the split was ever public knowledge, a detail that, more than any tabloid rumor, may say the most about how this particular Hollywood marriage actually ended. Not with a single explosive revelation, but with 2 people who had already done the difficult work of separating with some care, long before the rest of the world found out. This account is drawn from reporting by People, News, Fox News, Forbes, In Style, Taste of Country, and Board Panda's coverage of Nicole Kidman's Variety interview. Claims attributed to anonymous sources are identified as such and should be treated as reported speculation rather than confirmed fact.